All right, guys, what is going on? Back again, VIP members, this time with my man, Josiah Novak. What's going on, my man? How are you?
What's up, brother? I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
So, guys, today, as many of you know, we're expecting our first child here in 3 months. And so this guy I've actually been talking to a little bit about the process of what to expect coming up here soon. He has two little boys. How old are your sons?
They are 4 and 2.5, so they're about 18 months apart.
Gotcha. Cool. So what I want to do today with him is I want to kind of pick his brain and just learn a little bit more about how he goes about, nutrition with his kids and kind of the whole entire lifestyle that he lives. I'll let you kind of dive into, kind of tell everybody a little bit more about you and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in health and fitness now for, about 16 years. I became a trainer back in 2002, 2003, kind of towards the beginning of my college days. And I worked as a personal trainer for a few years, got out of fitness for a while, got back into it. I have now what is a pretty sizable online coaching program that works with, hundreds of people around the world. And it's called the True Transformation. And we've been in business now for about 5 years. We focus on, how powerful health and fitness can be when it comes to changing all areas of your life, right? So, it's a perfect segue to like what you just said with becoming a dad or becoming a mom and, wanting to be your best self, wanting to continue to be healthy and fit, but now you have other people that you're responsible for. It's a huge, huge step, right? It's a huge change. So we focus on how the habits we learn through changing our bodies, right? Changing our mindset around nutrition, changing the way we eat, how those habits and routines can then improve every aspect of your life, especially the areas that are most important to you, whether it's, your relationships, your finances, your business, right? All those things are impacted by how you take care of yourself. So a couple other things, I have a podcast. It's called the True Transformation Podcast. I also just wrote a book. It's called Diet Suck. Really just a slap in the face when it comes to the cookie cutter fad diet protocols that we see left and right. And what I've seen my entire life, whether it was Slim Fast, whether it was Weight Watchers, whether it was keto, everything is kind of a fad. So we wanted to really help people with nutrition because honestly, that's the most difficult part for a lot of people, right? Working out, maybe getting a little more active, that for a lot of people can be a simple step in the right direction, but the nutrition part is a really hard piece to master, especially for the hardworking family, men and women out there who are trying to live their best life, but really just can't seem to get a grasp on what's right and what's wrong when it comes to nutrition. So that book, Diet Suck, is really just a game changer for people who want to, have a healthy and fit lifestyle and be able to sustain their results for the rest of their life. So that's really it, man. That's me.
I love it, man. Well, first off, congrats on your first book. Guys, I got a copy. It's a great book. Definitely go and check that out. And it's on Amazon for sale. So
yeah.
Anytime. I know you have it probably on your website and stuff too, but we'll talk about that later on. But speaking of, diets suck and all of these different diets out there, I like to talk of it like in terms of like information overload. What's kind of your opinion with nutrition, the nutrition space here in 2018? Like where are we at?
Yeah, it's a dumpster fire. It's a big pile of bullshit is what it really is. And it comes down to the fact that when people see an opportunity to make a lot of money, because the fitness space is millions and billions of dollars, really, there's going to be a lot of people that come into the industry and a lot of information that gets kind of, put out there that is false, right? Because there's just a huge marketing push behind this information, right? Trying to confuse you, trying to, I compare it to politics all the time. It's funny. I believe that a lot of what we see in the news is really meant to divide us, right? Meant to confuse us, meant to make us wonder, like, who's right, who's wrong? Is it Democrats? Is it Republicans? Like, is Donald Trump as bad as everybody says he is? Like, we have all these confusions, right? Same is true with nutrition. The more they confuse people, the more they say, no, this is right. No, this is right now. Oh, we found out that this is right and we were wrong. People are going to continue to buy, right? Because we have a weight loss / weight gain and regain problem, right? We have a health epidemic. We have people who are getting fatter in a rapid state, right? We have kids who are now probably not going to live as long as their parents because they're not living a healthy lifestyle. So we have a very big problem. And of course, whenever there's a big problem, there's a lot of people that come into the space that try to solve that problem, or quote unquote, solve that problem for you, trying to make a lot of money, obviously. And so nutrition is just one of those areas that at the end of the day, I'll never stand up here and say it's easy to master your nutrition. If it were easy, obviously we'd all be walking around looking like, 300 Spartan warriors and shit. But it is very simple at the end of the day. And that doesn't make it easy, but it is very simple. So my whole premise or my whole stance on the matter is that I want to help simplify this stuff for people, because the more we can simplify things and we can wrap our head around things and we can just go, okay, this is what makes sense, well, the better off we're going to be in the long term. So, yeah.
Absolutely, man. I mean, and you're so right. Like, most people's mentality around nutrition is they go and they pick a diet and it's extremely hard to follow. Like, keto right now is extremely popular. And like, I think about if I was to try to go and do the keto diet, like, I couldn't even do it. Like, I'm a nutrition coach and all this stuff, but like, that's such a hard diet to consistently do for a year or whatever. So I think a lot of people kind of go into it with this like all or nothing mentality. And in reality, it's like, we just need to assess and see like, what's the one thing that is really derailing you? Like, what's the biggest issue that you're having right now? I'm like, let's start there. Like, let's through that assessment process. I'm sure I could tell you, 50 things you need to change, but like, what's the big rocks? What are the big rocks that we can start to focus on to move yourself forward? So I love that, man. So talk to me a little bit. Like, I know obviously, you actually went through a transformation yourself, and that's kind of how everything started for you. So talk to me a little bit, like, from the time that you were a kid and like how your nutrition was growing up, and then, how you gained weight and then went through the transformation yourself.
Yeah. So it's funny because growing up, I had no clue about nutrition. Both my parents were actually very athletic, very active, but we were also a one-income household with 6 kids. Therefore, cheap was the name of the game, right? So when it came to food, it was, what can we make in bulk? What can we buy in bulk? What can we make to keep our grocery bill from being astronomical every month? And that usually resulted in things like fish sticks, which is disgusting to think about. $1 cheeseburgers from McDonald's. I mean, McDonald's was a staple in our weekly nutrition blueprint, right? And so, that being said, I developed a lot of unhealthy eating habits as a kid, a lot of snacking, a lot of just grabbing, very palatable things like Cheerios and cereals and all this other stuff. So what that translated into was, as I went through a really just tumultuous time as a teenager, my parents got divorced when I was 13. My dad moved out. I lost really contact with him since then. So it's been about 20 years of minimal contact with my father. A lot of stress, right? Being the oldest of 6, trying to make sure my brothers and sisters were okay, trying to get into college, trying to do the whole high school thing and have friends and like be a normal kid. It was rough, right? So I look back now, and I didn't know it at the time, obviously. Hindsight's always 20/20, but I look back and I realized that I ate my feelings. Like, I really dived into food to help myself feel better, whether that was Taco Bell or breakfast sandwiches or things that just gave me like a little like, oh, that was really fucking good, right? Just for a temporary high to kind of make myself feel better based off what I was going through. So I got away with it in high school. Why? Because I was extremely active. I played 3 sports, right? Like, I played sports year round. And so I was always on the go. I was always working out. I got into lifting when I was a junior in high school. And so if I wasn't playing sports, I was in the gym, right? So I was able to burn off a ton of calories. I was probably burning, 5,000 calories a day and eating, upwards of probably 5,000 calories, right? So I was just kind of scooting by, and I was gaining weight because I was building muscle, but I never considered myself unhealthy. I didn't even know what that was. So the tide kind of shifted when I got into college, went through a rough patch, kind of didn't feel like school was really for me, stopped playing sports. A lot of things changed. I started a business because I saw an opportunity in the financial planning space. That business failed massively. I lost a lot of money. I lost my house. I lost my car. I was broke as shit. And so I was then starting to eat and also really just being super sedentary because I didn't have the energy and the drive to do anything. I was very depressed. And so I fell into a really dark place. Probably for a matter of a few years, I was just packing on, 10, 20 pounds a year. To the point where I woke up one day, I was almost 280 pounds. I remember stepping on the scale being like, damn, I'm pretty big. But I just had so much body fat. I'm lucky, man. I'll be honest. Like, even though I was probably about 80 to 75 pounds overweight, a lot of it was water. I'm big. I hold a lot of water, but I'm very athletic. And so like, I think I just had a lot of like denial around the fact that I was really out of shape because I was holding my weight pretty good. I didn't look 280 pounds of clothes on. I probably looked like 250, right? Anyway, so I started to look in the mirror and just hate what I saw because at one point I was an athlete. I remember waking up one day and seeing guys who were just ripped online because I was still into fitness. And I remember realizing like, oh my gosh, I look nothing like these guys. Like, I don't have my shit together. I'm broke. I'm fat. I have acne because I'm eating like shit. I have oily skin. It was just terrible, right? And, to be honest, what changed my life, and I always tell people this, is that I found somebody that I consider to be a mentor, even though he didn't know who I was. His name was Greg Plitt, and he was a fitness model at the time. He's dead now. Actually, he died a few years ago. But this guy had just had his shit together. I just happened to stumble across a YouTube video of his as I was looking for jobs when I was, going through the whole business situation. And he just inspired me, man. And like something inside of me was set on fire when I invested in Greg, because Greg's website was like $8 a month or something crazy. You got like, these days I would be hard pressed to find those kind of resources for $8, but he would give you nutrition stuff. He'd give you workouts. And it's just like, gave me this hope that there's people out there who actually can help me and who I want to be like. And so that was my journey kind of to that point. It was a turning point, right? I had a choice, like, continue down the road I'm going, eating my ass off every day, trying to just, ease my depression, ease my fears, all this shit. Or I can go all in on myself and start getting back to what I know will work, which is work, right? And starting to figure this whole nutrition thing out. What does eating healthy mean? I didn't know what macros were, man. Like, I just thought you're supposed to either eat clean or eat shit. Like, there was no in between. So anyway, I just dove into it, man. I just dove into learning. I started getting the addiction to personal development, reading, and from my early 20s, early to mid 20s till now, it's just been a steady, climb up this mountain that, we consider to be life. Right. And, nutrition though was one of the pieces that early on I realized I didn't have the fortunate luck to just eat whatever I wanted and be in shape. Right. I had to really, like, even today, I have to be super diligent with my nutrition. Otherwise, I'm not going to look like a fitness guy. I'm not going to feel good about myself. I'm not going to be healthy, So that's the long and short of it.
Wow. That's a really powerful story, man. I didn't know that. That's a lot. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously many, I guess you could call them, stops along the way, many checkpoints along the way that were both horribly disgusting and horribly like traumatizing for me, but also there were some that were incredibly enlightening, right? I mean, I just remember being so obsessed with these people that seemed to have it all together. And looking back, they probably didn't have it all together like I thought they did, but it inspired me, right? And it made me go, I want to at some point one day be that person for somebody else, right? Obviously, I'm never going to look like Greg Plitt. We have two totally different genetics, but maybe my words and my story and how I influence people can change lives. Because, I mean, honestly, I never got to meet the guy, which kind of sucks. But, he was one of the people, and obviously there were others along the way, but he was definitely one of the people that really just inspired the shit out of me and was like, okay, I can make something out of my life. I'm not going to sit here and wallow in my self-pity. I'm going to get out of this, and I know I can do it, and I'm going to change my identity, which was the biggest thing, going from a depressed, oh my gosh, my parents were the worst, I'm overweight, never going to be successful. I'm self-conscious. I'm shy. Like all these things that I associated, with as an identity, I brushed all that shit to the side and was like, no, I'm going to be a fitness icon. I'm going to be somebody who is an influencer. I'm going to be somebody who inspires other people, educates other people, and I'm going to live a life that is different than, historically what my family has looked like. And so I'm going to change the game. And it was just a commitment to that identity. Has it been easy? Hell fucking no, it hasn't, right? But it's, it is what it is.
Dude, I love that, man. And I completely agree. I think you always have to, like, the people that are most successful, especially like as entrepreneurs, I mean, you start to really dig into like their why. I mean, I never told my story as much as I have in the last 3 months. Like I didn't even tell it for 8 years. And then now I've been telling it like all over the place. Like, but I've also had so many people reach out to me and they're like, just thank you for being so transparent. Thank you for sharing that. Like, I wish I would have had podcasts and all that stuff when I was 16 years old. Like maybe I wouldn't have been such a shithead. I don't know, so that's really cool, man. So you talked about, I mean, a lot of obviously the things you had to overcome, the struggles you had to overcome, but like since you overcome that and since you had that transformation, like what are some of the struggles that like you still deal with now? Like what are, we all have struggles. Like even when we put people up on a pedestal, because I do it too, like especially in this space, like we always have to remind ourselves, like they don't have all their shit figured out, like everybody has their own stuff, right? Like, so what are some of the things, things that you feel comfortable sharing, obviously, but like from a nutrition standpoint, what are some things that you struggle with there?
Yeah. So from a nutrition standpoint, I have a family history of addiction, right? And so when I take a close look at myself and my habits and routines, I do see some tendencies towards being addicted to certain things. Whether it's that, hey, I had a rough day, let me grab something to make myself feel better. Or whether it's just, certain foods that I know I just can't say no to, right? I always use Nutella as an example. I honestly told my wife, don't bring that shit in the house because I don't know what it is, right? I have a hard time saying no, right? But that's what makes me human, right? I'm never going to be a robot. And I tell my clients this all the time, it's great if you set the bar high for yourself. I definitely expect you to do that. But at the same time, you also have to be loving towards yourself, not in an unhealthy way where everything's just cool and accepted and we're all just like living this hippie fucking land, right? But it's like, hey, you know what? We're going to screw up sometimes. Like, and all we can do is try to learn from those screw ups. And so, like I said, little things like, don't bring Nutella in the house because I know I'm going to eat the whole damn jar. Like I have this addiction with it, right? So I know I struggle with that. I do struggle too sometimes with impatience, right? So, I won't dive into like the details of being in the fitness industry that's chock full of lies and all this other shit. But there's a lot of guys out there that, it's easy to compare ourselves to. They're shredded, they're heavier than me, they look amazing and they have millions of followers and all this stuff. And like me being an expert, I know that they're doing things that I'm not willing to do, right? With substances and stuff like that. But I still get frustrated and go, damn, like I know they worked their ass off and, they got this body maybe that's a little better than mine, and then I get impatient. I start to do stupid stuff sometimes, right? With my nutrition, even though I'm a great coach and I know, hey, at the end of the day, I shouldn't be doing this, whether it's lower calories for a period of time that's just absurd, right? Or doubling up on my work output and, minimizing calories at the same time. Stupid, right? But sometimes we're just as guilty as anybody else of looking around and going, damn, that person has something that I don't. I need to do something that I've never done. No, right? That's not necessarily true. So I think sometimes trying to compare myself to others leads to some poor decisions with my nutrition. But it's something that, just because I do it doesn't mean I'm not accountable to it, right? And to say, hey, I can step back and work on these things and continually work on them, whether it's writing them down and reminding myself or meditating on it or just having gratitude for what I do have and focusing on my strengths and stuff like that. But, I think off the top of my head, battling with addiction tendencies and then comparison to others, which leads to poor nutrition sometimes, I think is two things that I've struggled with probably more than anything else over the past half decade or so.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that resonates with me. I mean, those are definitely two things. I mean, my family, same exact way. Like my aunt died in Colorado in a like homeless shelter in a fire. Like,
Mm.
but lived in a homeless shelter, like drugs and all that, like all the time. I mean, so it ran in the family. And then with me, same thing. Like if there's ice cream or whatever, like I mean, I'm gonna crush the whole pint. Like there's no way that I'm gonna have half. Like that just doesn't work. So, yourself, right? But
Yeah.
and then finding that balance too, you know, it's like for me personally, like, you know, people ask all the time, and I competed in CrossFit and and I was way freaking more fit 3 years ago. I looked way better, like all these things. But like the reality of it is like I can't have it all, right? Like I had to realize that like I don't want to look back 5 years from now and say, oh, I made it to the CrossFit games, but I don't have any money, like I haven't even started a business or whatever, you know? And so I had to make the decision, you know, the risk reward with competing in CrossFit just wasn't there for me personally, and I needed to go all in on this.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, no, of course. I think the illusion that anybody has it all is one that is very misleading, right? Having it all is impossible. There's always going to be a counterbalance to something that you go after with any kind of ferocity, right? Whether it's, hey, I want to be fucking shredded to the bone, right? Well, you're going to have to give up some stuff, and you're not going to have it all. If you want to have a multi-million-dollar business that helps millions of people around the world, you're going to have to sacrifice some things. And sometimes it's not so much sacrificing our health, because I hate when people say like, oh, you know, sometimes you got to sacrifice health to, you know, grind and hustle. I think that's total bullshit. But I think that you may not get to a level of physical excellence that maybe some other people would with more time on their hands. Doesn't mean you're not healthy and fit, right? It just doesn't mean you're going to be at the top of the podium and, you know, in multiple different sectors, whether it's business and fitness and family and stuff. I do think that there's something to be said for having ground rules, right? Of like, hey, there are certain things in my life that I'm never going to throw to the side or say no to, right? You know, my kids need something. Hey, it doesn't fucking matter if there's, I mean, unless of course there's a way to make it both work and not, you know, nobody gets hurt. There's no way I'm putting something in front of that, right? If my wife needs something, same deal, right? So I think that having it all is impossible, and nobody has it all. Even the most, you know, richest people on earth, Bill Gates, I wouldn't trade. You know, it's funny enough, I tell my clients this: I want to help get you to the point where you would never want to trade spots with anybody in this world, right? From any perspective, whether it's money, fitness, family, doesn't matter. And I feel like that today. I feel like there's not a single person on this planet that I would rather be than me. And that's not an arrogant statement. That's just me saying, you know what, I'm comfortable with what I have, even if it's not as much as other people, or the body that I have, even if it's not as, you know, incredible like The Rock or some shit, right? You know, I love The Rock. I like Arnold. Like, these guys are people that I looked at growing up as movie stars and like just these badasses. But I would never trade places with them because they don't have it all, right? They don't have it all. They have just as many problems as I do, just different problems, right? So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. Well, so channeling into kids now. So what are, you know, what's kind of your goal with nutrition for your kids? You know, like how do you approach the subject? How do you go about it? Like, let's go with that. Let's start there.
Yeah, I think, you know, whether it's a kid or whether it's an adult, I think we always have to lead with health, because health, honestly, is the number one asset that we have. Without our health, I mean, you can argue till you're blue in the face, but to me, there's not a whole lot to be said if you don't have your health. I mean, you're going to be a liability to others. You're going to be a liability to yourself. You're not going to have the experience of life that you would probably have if you took care of your health. So I always say, do our best to control what we can control when it comes to our health. You know, there's a lot of randomness that happens in this life, things that can't be explained, whether it's disease, whether it's, you know, accidents. There's a lot of things that we don't have control over. But if we can do our best to improve our health through what we eat and the activity we do with working out and stuff like that, we're going to be ahead of the game. So with kids, my thought is I just want to establish as many healthy habits as I can, but also live in the real world where I don't want my kids to talk about me at school like my dad's a weirdo health freak that doesn't let me eat anything except kale and, you know, fucking pasture-raised eggs and shit, right? Like that's not who I want to be.
Right.
I want to lead by example, right? I want to give my kids an opportunity to make their own choices, at the same time being educated around those choices. So, the number one thing we try to do is keep it simple, right? Try to keep it simple for our kids. Complicating things and making things impossible for us and for them just makes no sense. So what I mean by that, to give you some clear action items, we're a big fan of smoothies, right? So I think smoothies are one of the better things that you can start to incorporate into your life. Of course, if your gut can handle it, if you're able to process a lot of the stuff that can be put in a smoothie, there's ways to make it convenient. And it's a great way to start the day for kids who are just maybe not big appetites in the morning, or maybe just need someone for mom and dad to grab and go. But getting to see, my kids see us make smoothies, right, for ourselves. And then they started to say, oh, we want that, right? So every morning now, to give you an idea of how we feed our kids, we start them with some eggs, right? And then a smoothie. So the smoothie has fruit. It has, things like flax seeds, chia seeds. My wife hides stuff in there. She'll put spinach in there and stuff. She's sneaky like that. But it tastes pretty good. Berries, strawberries, getting some antioxidants and nutrition in them right away. And then they do go to school. So they're in a Montessori school, which is pretty focused on avoiding allergies more than quality nutrition. So we know that some of the meals they eat there aren't great, but we don't want to stress them out, right? By going, you can't eat that, you can't eat that. So we kind of asked them what did you eat today? What did you like? Was it good? Was it bad? How did it make you feel? Right? And if they're yeah, it made my stomach hurt, then we're okay, cool. Next time we see on the menu, we're going to send you with something, right? Something healthier. So we do that from time to time. And then dinner, for me and my wife, we like to mix up dinners. We like that to kind of be our wild card meal. So, whatever we're eating is typically what we give the kids. They, eat salmon. They eat things like chicken, a lot of healthier carbs potatoes, rice. My wife is Afghan, so they're big on cooking with turmeric and spices and stuff like that. So my kids have a pretty strong palate for that. And so that's really it. I mean, and then when the opportunity arises for us to have something bad, Halloween was just here, and it was a disaster this year because my 4-year-old is old enough to understand Halloween, 100%, right? Go door to door, get all the fucking candy. And of course, my 2.5-year-old just follows his lead. And so they were obsessed with getting as much candy. And we didn't say no to it, but they had 2 big buckets of candy when they got home. And we basically picked out 5 or 6 pieces from each bucket and tossed the rest. And it was actually really it was really bad. They freaked the fuck out, dude. They went nuts because it's amazing to watch kids who have no idea about nutrition, right? They don't have the education yet. They have no idea what they're doing. To watch how different foods impact them mentally, right? So they get a taste of chocolate. Well, now anytime chocolate gets brought up, they're oh yeah, fuck yeah, man, I want chocolate, right? And so it's as adults, we forget about how detrimental these foods and how controlling they can be over our minds because we've done it for so long. Watch your kids and see how it changes them. My kids have some candy or anything before bed, forget about it. It's an hour of just insanity. You're in a fucking movie or something of just kids trying to kill you. That's what it is. Because the food just dictates a lot of things, right? So anyway, I'm going on a tangent here, but at the big takeaways, we keep it simple. We lead by example. We're always asking them how they feel, not oh, you can eat that, you're going to fucking, look like shit or anything like that. It's just hey, how does that make you feel? And then 4, living in the real world where it's okay from time to time to enjoy some things, but not going overboard. We don't bring a lot of junk in the house. I told my wife, one of my commitments for 2019 is I'm not bringing any more of this bullshit ice cream in the house. Fuck Halo Top, fuck all this shit. It tastes like shit. I'm just being honest. It's cool when you're dieting and you're I just want something to crave, I'm craving sugar. But at the end of the day, if I'm going to eat ice cream, I'm just going to go to Haagen-Dazs with the family. We're just going to crush it, right? And fuck it. I'm not going to worry about it because I'm only going to eat it once every few months anyway, right? So I told my wife, I'm done bringing this junk in the house, not bringing it anymore, because it's just it's not a good use of our calories, not a good use of our nutrition. So, but yeah, that's really it. I think the big thing to understand as a parent is your kids are always going to do what you do. They're just going to. I said curse word in front of my kid. Next thing you know, he dropped an F-bomb. I kid you not, he dropped an F-bomb at school. They called us, and they were like, he said fuck, and I'm like, fuck. That was my reaction. And the teacher was like, huh? I was like, oh, God. So anyway, so it was a mistake on my part because I was driving, and I remember the scene, someone cut in front of me, and I was like, oh, fuck, and my kid heard me, he was like, fuck, what does fuck mean? And I was like, oh, great. So kids are going to mimic what you do. It's just part of life. So the best thing you can do to make your kids healthier is to clean your act up, clean your shit up, because they're going to do exactly what you do. They're just going to become copies of you until they rebel at some point and they start to learn on their own, like what it means to do their own thing. But until then, you need to lead by example, encourage them, and even talk about it. Like, hey, mommy and daddy, like we do this all the time. They're like, why are you eating this? We're like, well, mommy and daddy are really worried about health. We want to live a long time and we want to eat really well. And so we eat this. We don't say you have to do it. We just say we do it, and here's why. And that tends to go over pretty well.
Wow. Yeah, man, there's a lot of really good points on that. I'm over here taking mental notes for myself. So, I mean, obviously a lot of parents, I'm sure, are watching this, and they're probably sitting back and they're like, all right, cool. But what are the foods that, like, they don't like? Like, what are the things that you've tried that haven't worked? Like, is that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the list is very long of foods they don't like. And, here's the thing. You got to remember, we always go back to what can we control and what can we not, right? I'm not going to force feed my kid with a feeding tube healthy food just to get healthy food in his body, right? What I am going to do is get creative. And I'm going to just be frank with people because I feel like people just need more realness. It's going to fucking suck sometimes. And it's going to be hard, man. Like, stop bitching and complaining because something's hard. That's usually a sign that you need to do it, right? It's usually a sign that you need to run towards that problem versus going, well, little Johnny won't eat any vegetables, so fuck it, I'm just going to feed him, processed bullshit and McDonald's. No, right? There are creative ways. There's something called YouTube and Google. There's something called me and Justin, right? There's people out here who can help you. All you have to do is reach out or search for things and start learning this shit, right? When I had kids, guess what? I'd never had kids before, right? This is my first time. This is my first go-around, and it's everybody's first go-around when they have kids for the first time. So you're not born with a blueprint that's downloaded in your brain to be able to handle all these situations. I wish, right? I am going to write a book on being a dad because there's no daddy book out there that's really going to prepare you. Maybe there is, I just haven't found it, but there's not really going to prepare you for some of the difficulty because you got to understand, this kid is coming out. He's not a robot either. Right? He's not going to sit in his chair and eat his veggies and his 6 ounces of protein and his all other shit, right? He's not going to do that. He might scream and cry for 2 hours because he wants chocolate. That's happened multiple times in my house, right? So here's what we got to do. Number one, we got to have, once again, ground rules, right? What are we not going to do? What are we basically going to say no to no matter what, right? What are we going to compromise with if we need to, if we absolutely have to? How are we going to get creative? Are we going to start hiding vegetables? My wife, God bless her, man, she, my kids love mac and cheese, okay? They love it. Not the healthiest thing on the menu, of course, right? So what did my wife do? Well, they had mac and cheese when they went out to a restaurant one time. So now they got this thing. They want mac and cheese. So my wife looked up a healthy mac and cheese recipe, and she doubled down on that and figured out how to hide a bunch of vegetables in the mac and cheese. Is it still the top healthy meal? Probably not. Right? Is it much more protein focused now? Yes. Is it much less processed? Yes. Is there hidden vegetables? Yes. So we start checking the box of like, oh, that's a pro, that's a pro, that's a pro. Okay, we got a couple cons over here, but right now we're not trying to win the war in one fight, right? We're trying to win a battle here and there, lose a couple, but at the end of the day, we're working with our kids, right? The good news is, and this is probably a big tip for parents out there, is I think it's a great idea to introduce your kids to a lot of different types of foods. Now, some people might argue with me and be like, no, because then they're going to want shit. Well, that's not necessarily true. What I've noticed is that the more foods I introduce to my kids, the more options it gives us to help them eat healthy, right? So if all I do is say, no, you're eating salmon and rice or chicken and potatoes, and that is it. Well, if they don't like those things, what are you going to do, right? But if we start introducing them to maybe different ways of cooking those foods, like maybe an Asian style, maybe we do Indian food. My kids, by the way, love Indian food. So if you get Indian spices and shit, man, try that out. It's like one of the easiest things to make anything taste the same. Like we can make beef taste Indian. We can make rice taste Indian. Like the options are unlimited. So when you figure out they have a taste bud or preference for something, then you can start to make other foods taste that way. And you'll be blown away at what kids will eat and what they'll love, right? So I think it's a good idea to introduce them to different foods, introduce them to different ways of cooking foods, different flavors, different spices. Get their bodies or get their minds really wrapped around the fact that there's things out there that they might like. That's going to help you come up with a menu that works for your family, right? But I will argue that I have hundreds of clients with kids. And the ones who are successful with both their own nutrition and their kids as the ones who take full responsibility for leading the family with their own habits, right? You can't have a dad that's eating cheeseburgers and milkshakes complaining about a kid that wants cheeseburgers and milkshakes. It doesn't work that way, right? You can't say, well, I'm working on my shit. I'll get my shit together at some point. But my kids are going to eat healthy. No, they're not. I'm straight up. They're not. They're going to do what you do. They're going to trust me, my kids are sneaky as shit, man. My wife hid some candy. She took the Halloween bucket. She took 5 pieces for the kids and whatever. And then she took her own little stash. These motherfuckers, I'm not calling my kids motherfuckers, but, the term. But these kids found her stash. It was so well hidden, dude. I remember I heard my kid yelling, "Daddy, look what I found." I'm like, what? I come in the kitchen. He's got Kit Kats in his hand. I'm like, where'd you get those? And I text my wife. I'm like, babe, did you buy Kit Kats? She's like, oh my God, they found my secret Halloween candy stash. Oh my God. And I was like, how the hell? It was like hidden under like boxes. Like these kids, man, they will figure it out is my bottom line. Kids are much smarter than we think. So lead with your own shit. Share your struggles with them. Share the fact that you're trying to clean up your diet and you're going to eat this way because you want to live a long time. And they will follow your lead.
Yeah, I love that. So what if, like, let's say, for instance, I'm sure you've had this happen before, but let's say, for instance, parents come to you and they have kids that are, 5 years old, and they haven't been doing any of these things, and they've been eating all this crap. Like, what's the first thing that they should start doing? Like, very general, but like, what would be the first maybe 1 or 2 or 3 things that you would start doing?
Yeah, I mean, it would just come down to attacking a couple of different routines, right? Maybe figuring out where can we get some quick wins, right? Maybe we start making healthy things taste really good and we don't tell the kids, right? Because, I mean, there's some times where, telling kids too much can lead to issues, right? Because they have this whole preconceived like notion of like, oh, well, if you're making things this way, it's not going to taste the same way, right? But I get it. I'm a realist. Like I said, I live in the real world. I understand that if you've been, if you got older kids maybe who are, 6, 7, 8 years old who've just been eating like rather poorly with you for a while, and now you're a parent who goes, okay, I got to clean up my act. I got to get my shit together. I would once again argue that it's always going to start with you. So you can't go and say, okay, everybody has to eat clean now. Everybody has to track their macros. Like, that's not going to work. You have to go, I'm taking ownership for myself. Start there. It will start bleeding into the other people's routines that you're responsible for, right? Whether it's like, hey, guys, I know we go to McDonald's every fucking day, right? Because that's what we do on the way home from school. I know people who do that shit, right? Or maybe it's a rotation. Today's Chick-fil-A, and tomorrow's McDonald's, and then we're going to Wendy's. And it's like, fuck, man, you're just destroying your health. Yeah. Maybe what you do, instead of stopping completely, maybe you say, hey, guys, mommy and daddy are only going to get these menu items this time. And you know what? There are going to be moments where you have to put your foot down. I don't mean like torture your kids or anything like that, but there may be times where you just have to take a stand and say, you know what, you'll get the burger next week, but this week we're doing a chicken sandwich, right? Because it's a little bit cleaner, a little healthier, a little less calories. And then maybe you say, hey, we're going to make McDonald's hamburgers at home. We're going to make our own McDonald's hamburgers. We're going to, I know to people, here's the thing. To people, this sounds like, oh, fuck, this is going to just take so much work. And guess what? You are 100% correct. Thank you very much, right? You are so right. It is going to take a lot of work. But it is your fault, right? You have gotten to this point, and say what you want. Like I said, I remember sitting on my bed, depressed as shit, wondering what I was going to do with my life. And I wanted to blame my parents for everything, right? Oh, these assholes, they fed me like shit. They got divorced. My dad hit me. My dad cursed me out all the time. My mom cursed me out all the time. They were abusive. Yes, all those things are true, but guess what? They're not in control of my life. Only I am. So when people sit there and they bitch and complain about, oh, this is going to be so hard, it's not going to be as hard as you think, right? I always tell people it's the good times aren't probably as great as you think, and the bad times aren't as bad as you think. We always tend to exaggerate everything. Like, oh my God, imagine like the first few days of cleaning up your nutrition with your kids and the first few months, they're going to be challenging, right? Maybe the first year is a headache. You're just like, God, is this ever going to get better? And then one day you wake up and you go, that wasn't so bad. Like, it wasn't that bad. I look back at my weight loss journey, losing almost 80 fucking pounds, and I go, yes, in moments it was excruciating. But I'm so fucking glad I did it because it really wasn't that bad. I mean, there's many other struggles out there. You know, I hate to be the Debbie Downer here, but listen, you got two choices. You can go through the hard shit and get better results and live a much better life long term. Or you can just say fuck it and give up and probably get disease and your kids will be unhealthy and overweight and have a horrible life. Which one do you want, right? Because it's really going to come down to that decision. I know you say you want to clean things up, but then you complain and you don't want to do the work. How about we just go, I'm gonna go all in. I'm going to go all in. It's going to suck ass. Everything in life has sucky moments, right? Shout out to my next book called Everything Sucks, by the way. But it's the truth. Everything sucks. You have your first kid, man. You know, you're going to wake up the first week and go, fuck, what did I do? This is the worst. Like, I mean, I hope to God you don't, but there's probably a good chance that you do, right? 1 hour of sleep and you got to do your work and you got to take care of your clients. And then you get 2 hours of sleep the next night. You're like, oh my God, this sucks. Of course, right? But then you're going to wake up one day, 6 months into it, and you're going to look at your kid and go, I would die for you right now. And I love this kid, right? I would do anything for this kid. Yeah. And so same is true with anything like this, man. Anything that's important to us, there's going to be sucky moments. Cleaning up your nutrition lifestyle with your kids is going to suck, especially if they're older and they have habits and routines and preferences and demands and they're little monsters half the time. But you know what? What else? What other choice you got? There's no magical pill. There's no secret recipe. You just got to do the fucking work. So that's it.
I mean, what's the alternative, right? Like, I think everybody comes to a point that everybody comes to a certain point in their life where like they kind of have that moment, or they finally wake up and then they finally actually go all in. But that's one thing that is just so interesting to me. It's like, man, it's so different for everybody individually. It's like, what is, like, I just love learning, like, what was that thing that finally made you do it? And like, for you, it was a mentor from afar. For me, it was a mentor from afar, right? Like, I mean, I'm such a big believer in the mentor, or even, hiring a coach. Because when you hire a coach, I mean, even if you're hiring a nutrition coach or trainer or whatever, like, in a sense, you're becoming like a mentor for you, right? If they do their job, right? So, man, I love that. Any final tips that you want to share with the parents in terms of nutrition, like little life hacks or anything you can think of off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I mentioned this already, but don't fall victim to the complicated stuff out there, right? Start with 1 or 2 habits. I know it sounds really slow and like, oh, it's going to take forever, but 1 or 2 habits that, like you had said, I think you had mentioned the big rocks analogy. I love that, right? The big rocks analogy is basically just getting the couple things that are going to make a massive difference versus trying to do 20 things that are only going to make a small difference each, right? So I would say, hey, if we want to just get super granular and give you some tips and advice, when we're talking family nutrition, you can't go wrong with eating plenty of vegetables and fruit, right? Getting the vitamins, getting the minerals, getting the antioxidants, getting the things that are going to improve your health. That's a great place to start, right? Starting to create meals that are based around a protein source. I'm not a big believer in high protein. I think it's detrimental to our health long term. I do think that it will help with building muscle. And of course, there's other great benefits to protein, but I don't think anybody needs to go with absurd amounts of protein. I think, it depends on where you are today. Obviously, if you're already somebody who gets plenty in, then, you know, great, good for you. But if there's somebody out there who's like, man, I can barely eat 20 grams of protein a day, you know, start with just trying to get to, you know, half the, you know, in grams per, you know, per pound of body weight or whatever, just to set a new goal for you, new target, right? So build meals for the family based around healthy protein sources. You know, start getting educated on this stuff. I know it's hard because you go online, you type in fat loss diet, and it's like, oh, I can eat tuna and that's it. Oh, great. You know, so like you know, oh, should I go keto? Oh, I should probably start putting butter in my coffee. Like, you get confused. So if you're watching this, obviously you're in a good spot because you're surrounded by people who know what the hell they're talking about. But not everybody has that ability to just find the right person, right? To be honest, you're going to have some trial and error. You know, if you start listening to somebody, I would say if they got a good track record, and there's a lot of people that they've helped, you see testimonials and social proof and stuff like that, chances are if you reach out to them and say, hey, I'm trying to learn nutrition, I'm trying to get help for my family, I want to make sure my kids are healthy, that person, if they're a good coach, is going to point you in the right direction. And their clients are probably more than happy to talk to you too about things that they learn from that coach. So I would say getting educated, whether that's hiring a coach, investing in a mentor if you have the resources, or just starting to watch free content. I mean, there's endless amounts of free content that we put out. I know you and I mean, if somebody just watched our free content, they have years of stuff to watch, right? So, you know, get committed to that investment in your education around nutrition. I mean, I just, it boggles my fucking mind, dude. Like, one last thing I'll say is like a rant. Hopefully people don't think I'm some maniac here, but you know, it boggles my mind that something we do every day, multiple times a day, we are the least educated about as a society. Like, eating is something we do more than anything else, I think, right? Maybe sleeping and using the restroom is close. But we're so uneducated about it, and we're so confused about it. It boggles my fucking mind. Like, it really does. Like, how can something we do so much of be something we have no interest in understanding? It just doesn't make sense. So I think that if you're going to take away one thing from this, get fucking educated on nutrition, right? Start slow, 1 or 2 habits, fruits and veggies, protein. You get those things down. I mean, those are some pretty big rocks, right? Those are pretty big rocks. Calorie control and meal timing and, you know, proper amounts of macros and micros and all that shit, that'll come with time. But I think you get those things down, you probably see a ton of results, and your family's going to see results, and they're going to feel better too. So that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, kind of bringing a few of those things together, I think so many of these families that maybe we're mentioning, like, they just don't even cook. Like, they don't grocery shop. Like, they're not even at home. They're not even having the kids in the kitchen with them, taking them through these practices, you know, making the kitchen and cooking kind of a way of life and a happy place. Like, turn on the music and like bring them on.
Such a good point, dude. Yeah, that is, I mean, that's a massive, I mean, even me, I'm reminded of like, yeah, you're totally right. Like, you know, on, I think it was Sunday morning, I woke up, my kids started asking for pancakes. I keep healthier pancake mix in the house, right? And so I made, you know, we got together, me and my 2 boys, we made pancakes. I made them a huge pancake each, you know, made a smiley face with fruit. Like, I made the berries like a little smiley face, and a banana as the eyes, and like little raspberries the nose, you know, like, and it's just, we're laughing, we're having a blast. And I'm like, don't eat their eyes, don't eat the pancakes' eyes. And they're like, oh, I'm going to eat the eye. And like, you know, it's like, you can't do that with 15-year-olds, obviously. They'd be like, fuck you, Dad, right? But but you can do it with your younger kids, or you can say, hey, you know, let's do a contest. Like, if you have kids who are, you know, competitive, like, let's see who can make the tastiest healthy meal. Like, let's do a bake off or some shit, you know? Like, I know it sounds, once again, like, oh, it sounds, yeah, it's gonna take some effort, dude. I'm just saying, like, that's the overall message here. It will take effort. But I'll tell you right now, cooking can be fun. Anytime I do anything in the kitchen, the music, man, that is so freaking key. Put on some old school Frank Sinatra if you're trying to get, like, cook Italian food or some shit, or put on some techno if you're just like, fuck it, man, I'm just throwing some shit together. Like, you know, I mean, it makes a huge difference, man. It totally does.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Well, dude, I want to respect your time here. Where can everybody find you at? Where are you at on the social medias of the world?
Yeah, man. So at Josiah Fitness on pretty much all major platforms, whether that's Twitter, I'm actually big on Twitter now. I just like started crushing it on Twitter. I love Twitter now. It's like an easy place to just throw rants at people, and they're like, oh, you know, it's just a lot of interaction. So Facebook at Josiah Fitness, facebook.com. And then Instagram, I do a lot of stuff on Instagram. YouTube, we're starting to do a lot more. We have a lot of YouTube planned for the coming years. So if you just want free, helpful videos, you know, do that. If you want to invest in something, I would say, you know, the best place to start is just grab my book. You know, it's $15 on Amazon. It'll walk you through a really simple blueprint of setting up a nutrition plan that lasts forever. So yeah, my blog is thetruetransformation.com/blog. So
sweet. Awesome, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on. I think
thanks for having me.
I got a whole bunch of value out of it, so hopefully it kind of helps these parents as well. I know that I'm trying to be as ready as I possibly can be, but you know, I know that there's nothing I can really do. So, dude, thanks for taking the time, man, and I really appreciate it.
Dude, thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. Let me sign us out here.